Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a stack of dense, often contradictory sources and really just distill them into the essential knowledge you need to be well-informed.
And today we are undertaking a truly extraordinary deep dive. I mean, it's a story that starts with a single brutal crime in Bangkok,
Right.
but then it just spirals out. It pulls in global finance, ancient spiritual beliefs, and what can only be described as a meticulously orchestrated campaign of revenge.
Yeah, this is one of those deep dives that really challenges how we categorize, crime and motivation.
It does. Our sources, we're looking at forensic reports, internal corporate memos, some deep analysis of the global pornography industry, and of course, police interrogations.
And they all circle around the mysterious death of a woman named Damrong.
Exactly. And her history is, well, it's a roadmap of survival. She moves from the most crushing poverty imaginable to operating at the absolute highest echelons of society.
Using leverage and blackmail.
Except
So the mission for us today is to connect these wildly disparate dots. I mean, how does one woman's life, which is so marked by this intense personal trauma, lead to a high-stakes international criminal investigation?
one that touches upon the most fundamental concepts of Thai spirituality.
Yeah, that's the part I'm struggling to connect. We have to synthesize the evidence linking this personal obsession with spiritual debts concepts like, what is it, karma and
Gaddanyu.
Gadanya, right? Linking that to a vast, hyper-capitalist corporate conspiracy run by these powerful anonymous figures.
Who are only referred to as the invisible men.
The invisible men.
And that's the core of it. This case just blurs all the boundaries. It forces us to move beyond the standard, legal and psychological frameworks we're used to.
So we have to understand the confluence of what spiritual reckoning and hyper-modern illicit cash flows.
Exactly. Where does the ancient belief system end and the contemporary corporate crime begin?
And I guess the answer is they don't.
We're going to find that in this story, they are inextricably linked. In fact, they often use each other to achieve the final outcome.
Okay, let's unpack this right at the beginning then. The morgue.
The morgue.
The victim is Damrong, and the initial identification was pretty straightforward, confirmed via fingerprints on the national database.
Right. And she came from Isikit, which is a small district within Thailand's poorest and, frankly, most overlooked region, Aisin.
And a life starting in that kind of poverty, it already suggests a motivation that's driven by survival, not just, simple greed.
Oh, absolutely. And that background, that deep poverty, is key to understanding her later ruthlessness. But the crime scene itself, it immediately presents a contradiction. She was strangled. But the forensic evidence, it just defies all the usual markers of violent crime. Dr. Supatra, the forensic scientist on the case, she noted that there were absolutely no recreational drugs in Damrong's system.
So she wasn't incapacitated.
Not by any substance, no. Which
No.
rules that out immediately.
But the physical observation is what really makes you pause.
It is.
The report says no signs of physical struggle or forced restraint. Her body didn't fight back.
Right. And Dr. Supatra's exact observation was, it's chillingly precise. She said it was as if she were strangled while tied up, except there are no indications of forced restraint either.
Wow. Okay, so that absence of a struggle changes the entire dynamic of the crime.
Completely.
If she wasn't drugged and she wasn't tied, but she offered no resistance to being strangled, that implies a level of psychological control or maybe even,
Willful compliance.
yeah, which is almost unheard of in a murder investigation. Was she just resigned to her fate? Or was the perpetrator's game so complete that resistance was just, irrelevant?
That's the question that hangs over everything. That detail alone is so unsettling.
It suggests the perpetrator was someone who held absolute authority over her. Or maybe, like you said, the victim herself just accepted the outcome.
Hmm.
And speaking of unusual perspectives, we really need to spend some time on the investigator who came up with those findings, Dr. Supatra.
Our sources describe her as a highly competent forensic scientist. Over 50, slim, stern, always in her immaculate white coat.
But she has this skepticism.
A deeply rooted skepticism of what she perceives as the prevailing Western superiority complex in scientific investigation. She's not just a scientist, she's almost a cultural gatekeeper.
And what's truly fascinating is how this wariness translates into her approach to evidence.
The hobby.
The hobby. Dr. Supatra has a unique hobby that sort of merges her professional reality with the spiritual beliefs of Thailand.
Most nights, she spends her time recording the morgue facing the steel tombs where the cadavers are kept using an infrared camera
To collect evidence of the undead.
to collect evidence of the undead.
Okay, so this is where we hit our first major cultural speed bump in the investigation.
A huge one. The footage she collects reportedly shows phantoms, demons, and what she calls subterranean creatures.
And when the FBI agent who was observing the case reviewed this footage, she found it grotesque and morbid.
Of course she did, because the agent is operating purely within a material, evidence-based paradigm. She couldn't reconcile the objective science with this spiritual surveillance.
Right, and this cultural contrast is just essential context for this whole deep dive. In the West, science and spirituality are generally siloed. You keep them apart. But in the Thai belief system, the two just coexist. The sources remind us that locally, the undead, the ghosts, the spirits, the phantoms, they might outnumber the living by 100 to 1.
So for Dr. Sapatra, the scientific lens, the infrared camera, it's just another tool to record a reality that is already accepted.
The reality that the non-material world influences the material one.
Precisely. So this case, from the very beginning, establishes two parallel tracks. The material facts, who strangled her, how the money moved, and the immaterial forces like revenge, spiritual debt, and the power of the deceased.
Okay, so let's anchor back to the material facts for a second. Damrong's identity.
Right. The database listed her as Mrs. Damrong Baker. Her Thai name was Tarasorn, and crucially, her parents were Cambodian refugees.
Which immediately placed her in a highly vulnerable and marginalized position in Thai society. She literally started life at the bottom of the social ladder.
But she did not stay there. Her life took a very abrupt turn when she married an American man, Daniel Baker.
And she lived in the United States for 2 years.
That period in the U.S. was pivotal. It's where she gained the Western technological and, I guess, legal literacy that she later weaponized.
And this weaponization started in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, of all places. She and Daniel Baker were prosecuted there for running a bawdy house.
They both pleaded guilty, and she was deported 4 years before her death, just before she started working at the Old Man's Club back in Bangkok.
But the real significance of this Florida period was the leverage she built, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The key detail is why the case got so much publicity. It wasn't just any bawdy house.
City fathers, judges, and prosecutors were implicated.
Exactly. Damrong and Baker weren't just running a prostitution ring. They were running a highly sophisticated, financially targeted blackmail operation.
And they made an astonishing amount of money. $300,000.
An incredible sum back then. And it was all achieved by using video clips to blackmail the local movers and shakers.
So this is our first definitive proof that Damrong was a strategic genius. She recognized the value of filmed proof and the immense leverage it provided over men in power.
She understood the power of digital recordings to force compliance and, to generate wealth.
And this early success in Florida, it just set the template for her later, much deadlier operations back in Bangkok.
She learned that anonymity and the preservation of reputation were worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to powerful men. And that lesson is crucial for understanding the financial backdrop of her eventual murder.
Right. To understand the high-end snuff film contract that led to Damrong's death, a contract worth over $1 million, we had to take a deep dive into the global financial structure of the pornography industry.
An industry that relies entirely on corporate silence and hypocrisy.
Yet this context is vital because it explains where the money comes from and why these invisible men have the institutional protection they do.
And our source material points to research conducted by a police colonel Vicorn. Now, Vicorn is a complex figure.
Very.
He's running a highly lucrative yaba business. That's the Thai for methamphetamine.
We should probably pause and clarify that for a second.
Yeah.
Yaba literally translates to madness drug.
Right. It's a massive social and criminal problem in Thailand, and Vicorn is a key player in its trafficking.
But his interest in Western culture and finance was purely to diversify his portfolio, so to speak, and to understand market threats. He commissioned research using keywords like meths, DEA, drug abuse, and crucially, porn.
Vicorn was trying to spot new revenue streams that could be leveraged by organized crime.
And what provided him, and subsequently us, with the key insight was a detailed New York Times article on Erotica Inc.
This piece revealed how massive technological advances had effectively ushered Wall Street into the market for pornography distribution. It was no longer a fringe business.
It was a blue-chip stock play.
Pretty much. And the scale is what truly forces a reckoning. You would never expect General Motors, a car company, to be a major player in graphic sex distribution.
No.
But they are. Via their DirecTV subsidiary, GM sells more graphic sex films annually than the entire Larry Flint's Hustler empire.
That is insane.
And that estimate is nearly $200 million a year, according to distributors cited in the source material.
So hundreds of millions of dollars being generated by a company that publicly focuses on, SUVs and satellite connectivity.
And GM is not alone. Look at EchoStar, the #2 satellite provider. They make more money selling adult films than Playboy's combined businesses. The magazine, cable channels, internet ventures, all of it.
Wow. And AT&T is in on it too, right?
Yeah. The largest U.S. communications company. They offer hardcore channels like the Hot Network to their broadband cable subscribers and provide sex videos to nearly 1 million hotel rooms across the U.S.
These numbers are just astonishing. We're talking about 711 million rentals annually.
With almost 10,000 films produced every single year, yet this massive commercial engine operates under a thick blanket of corporate denial.
And this is the critical connection point, isn't it?
It is. Despite this X-rated revenue often being the biggest moneymaker for these major media and telecommunications conglomerates, companies like GM, AT&T, and Time Warner maintain a strict public silence.
In their annual reports, this enormous revenue stream is only mentioned in vague, sanitized euphemisms.
And the executives won't talk about it. They refuse to be quoted.
So the core of the business model is profit privately, deny publicly.
Exactly. They reap the rewards of the sex trade while maintaining this immaculate public face. And this hypocrisy is what provides the perfect camouflage for the invisible men.
Right. This commercial reality proves that there is a vast hidden market for extreme content. And it's fueled by high-end investors who value anonymity above all else.
When you have legitimate corporations generating hundreds of millions in complete silence, it signals to organized crime and illicit investors, the dealers investors mentioned in the source, that the market for extreme, non-public acts is robust and, more importantly, protected.
So the $1 million snuff film contract isn't an anomaly then?
Not at all. It's a natural, if extreme, extension of this hidden financial model.
If major players can afford to lose a few tens of millions on a risky venture, like meth trafficking or a corporate takeover, they certainly have the disposable capital to afford a high-end, bespoke act of violence commissioned purely for, morbid passion.
Exactly. The corporate silence validates the investment in the illicit. It shows that money talks, and as long as the transactions are private, the legal system and public opinion can be bypassed.
And this high-end liquidity and anonymity provide the exact environment that allows a place like the Parthenon Club to thrive and the invisible men to operate without fear of exposure. So now that we understand the financial forces at play, let's track Damrong's strategic ascent through Bangkok's social and sexual hierarchy.
After her deportation from the U.S., she didn't waste any time. She used down-market bars, but only as a temporary stepping stone while she readjusted to Bangkok.
Before rapidly moving up the food chain.
Very rapidly. And we get a very telling insight into her psychological method through her ex-husband, Daniel Baker.
Baker. He's the classic Mr. Average Farang, the typical Western man in Thailand who gets completely caught by the disease of passion.
And a Farang, just to clarify for you, is the Thai word for a white person. It's often used neutrally, but sometimes with a bit of distance.
And Baker, he was just utterly devoted, right? Believing Damrong's lies while trying to set up a legitimate computing business for them.
He represents the pathetic, defeated Westerner used for access instability. But his later psychological analysis of Damrong is the key to her motivation.
What did he say?
He says she viewed the world through a lens of constant, brutal threat. Her entire existence, her sole reason for being, was to work and look after her kid brother.
Which explains her rejection of Western psychological concepts.
Completely. She told Baker the West's focus on social and psychological problems, feelings, trauma, self-care, was totally irrelevant to her brutal reality of constant survival.
Which is why she was so ruthless.
Yeah.
If her reality was pure threat, then her actions, the blackmail, the manipulation, the revenge, they were just advanced survival tactics.
And later we see Baker utterly defeated. He's working as an English teacher, resigned to non-existence.
Right, and his final desperate act during the interrogation of the investigating cop just highlights his incompetence.
Oh, the laptop.
The laptop. He tries to get rid of the key evidence, this shiny black laptop which contains all of Damrong's sexual history clips, by hanging it out of his window using a rope.
I mean, the sources describe this as a humorously amateurish reaction of a born loser.
It is. He's trying to cut a deal with the police while simultaneously destroying the one thing that gives him any leverage.
And it perfectly contrasts his defeated, sloppy method with Damrong's calculated surgical precision.
And that precision is what fueled her progression, leading her to the pinnacle, the Parthenon Club.
And this is not just a high-end brothel. It's a monument to excess and secrecy. A neo-Roman, four-story building off Sukhumvit, described as kitsch and camp.
Designed to project power while concealing the true players.
Exactly. And the club's structure is vital for understanding the impunity of the clientele. It operates on two distinct membership tiers.
Right, there's the official membership, which is relatively cheap.
And often used by minor partners or business associates. Basically, they're essential for serving as disposable fall guys, should any minor scandal arise.
But the real power resides with the ex-members.
The highest flyers in Thailand. Senior army officers, very senior cops, bankers, businessmen, politicians. They represent the true financial and political elite.
And their access is completely separate. They use private elevators to reach private rooms, ensuring total anonymity.
And the gatekeeper, the footman at the door, is the system's brain. He doesn't rely on digital records. He carries the names of every secret member in his head.
And he handles all the assignment matching.
This reliance on a human, a dedicated slave-like gatekeeper, ensures that the digital trail, which Damrong previously used for blackmail, remains clean.
And Damrong rose to the absolute peak within this structure. She became the favorite of two distinct ex-members.
And she began to manipulate the intense rivalry between them, ensuring her ultimate payoff.
Okay, let's introduce these two rivals. First, we have Khun Tanakan.
He is a Thai-Chinese banker, tall, sophisticated, with jet black hair. His height suggests potential Manchurian ancestors, which is a subtle nod to his powerful yet sometimes culturally distinct heritage within the Thai elite.
And he's described in really visceral terms, possessing a lust of reptilian intensity.
And the second rival is Tom Smith, an English lawyer. He's listed as one of the official lower-tier members, though clearly he has enough cash and power to be considered a major client.
He's the one casually dismissed by the investigating cop as a yuppie jerk who kept his brains in his dick.
That's him.
So Damrong placed herself squarely between these two powerful men, the ruthless, intense Asian banker and the young, privileged Caucasian lawyer.
An extremely dangerous game. She was using the deep-seated social dynamics of Thailand race, status, and historical resentments as her weapon of choice.
Okay, let's move to the executioner, Stanislaus Kowalski, the masked man in the snuff video.
The FBI identified him surprisingly quickly. They used isometric technology on his eyes, cross-referencing this against the digitalized mugshot that was taken upon his entry to Thailand.
And we should probably define that technology for you. Isometric technology is advanced biometric analysis. It measures the physical dimensions of the eye, like the distance between the pupils, the unique patterns of the iris and retina.
And it creates a highly accurate, static digital signature.
So since all tourists and entrants to Thailand are digitally photographed, this provided an immediate, non-traditional identification.
Yeah.
It just bypassed any attempt at facial masking or disguise.
Right. And Kowalski turned out to be a 43-year-old mainstream male porn star, known professionally as Ed's supplement part of the successful team Jock End.
But he was broke.
Completely bankrupt and utterly desperate. His motivation was purely financial and mercenary. He owed vast sums to loan sharks, dealers, and was behind on child support for his ex-wife and 2 kids in Kansas.
So the money offered by Damrong Syndicate was his last lifeline.
It was. And the video of the act itself reveals the deep psychological turmoil he was experiencing. The analysis showed Kowalski's hands shaking wildly during the act.
A profound tremor that was completely absent in his previous professional work.
And this is key. It confirms he was under immense stress and was suffering, despite his horrific actions. He wasn't a sociopath. He was a broken man forced to perform a final, terrifying act.
He had to use massive amounts of Viagra just to perform.
Which he claimed was neutralized by heroin given to him by Damrong. This just paints a picture of Damrong's complete control. She ensured he was physically present and functionally capable, but psychologically and chemically unstable.
And Kowalski's final claim, which he delivered before his eventual tragic suicide, is just the heart of Damrong's strategic genius.
What did he say?
He confessed that Damrong successfully convinced him that living was a total bust and that the invisible men controlled everything anyway.
Wow.
She made him promise to kill her as the price for the best sex I ever had. He was performing a professional service, but she had framed it as an act of mercy and a release from a controlled life.
So he fulfilled the contract, but he couldn't live with the reality of what he had done, or perhaps the psychological manipulation he had suffered.
Exactly. He committed suicide shortly after, using an AK-47 in Phnom Penh. So Damrong, even in death, had orchestrated his destruction.
Incredible.
Now let's turn to Khun Tanakan, the man who paid over $1 million for this transaction.
His motivation wasn't purely lust. It was deep toxic rage rooted in his past. His background is crucial.
Okay.
His father was a wealthy Chinese border trader, speculated to be involved in opium, but certainly dealing in high-value jade. And his mother was a Thai whore.
Which means he was perpetually lowest in the family pecking order, despite his wealth.
Yes, he's a world authority on jade, a hard, culturally significant material that symbolizes wealth and permanence, which contrasts sharply with his own unstable social standing.
The source says he grew up as a python waiting to strike.
A man whose intense, focused ambition morphed into a lust of reptilian intensity.
And Damrong saw this vulnerability perfectly.
She was his total and complete opposite, dare I suggest your other half. She used that intense attraction and, crucially, weaponized his status anxiety by focusing on Tom Smith.
The English lawyer.
She used Smith to inflict acid into Tanakan's veins. She provoked overwhelming jealousy because Smith was taller, younger, stronger, and Caucasian.
So for Tanakan, who already felt marginalized due to his Chinese prostitute heritage, this was the ultimate humiliation, and it was engineered by the woman he obsessed over.
It wasn't just about sex, it was about public, racial, and social inferiority.
And this manipulation was Tanakan's fatal flaw. He was so intensely insulted by Damrong's choice to favor the Farang lawyer that he invested over $1 million in the snuff movie contract.
That expense was the true measure of his morbid passion and his need to destroy the object that humiliated him.
And Tom Smith, the lawyer, served as the perfect fall guy.
Not only was he manipulated as the object of Tanakan's revenge, a secondary target Damrong intended to destroy, but Smith was also Tanakan's consigliere and legal advisor.
So he likely structured the contract.
Unknowingly making himself fully complicit in the very acts that Damrong intended to destroy both of them.
Wow. Okay, so this is where the narrative leaps fully from corporate crime to spiritual warfare.
It really does. The actual execution of Damrong's post-mortem revenge was entrusted to her younger brother, Phra Tanaka, known by his former name, Gammon.
And Gammon is an incredible character arc in himself.
He was a former Yaba trafficker, a low-level criminal like so many young men in Aizen.
But he transformed into an advanced monk, almost an arhat, practicing deep Vipassana meditation.
And Vipassana is insight meditation, aimed at penetrating the true nature of reality. An arhat is a perfected person who has gained insight into the true nature of existence.
But the force that pulled him out of that spiritual peace was Gedanyu.
Yes. We need to clearly define this concept for you, as it is central to the entire motivation of the monk.
Please.
Gadanyu is the sacred, unpayable debt of gratitude, particularly to one's parents or elders. For Gammon, that unpayable debt was owed to his sister, Damrong, who had been his sole protector throughout their brutal childhood.
So because of Gedanyu, Damrong's control over him remained absolute even after her death.
It did. Her final instructions were not left as a will, but delivered via email to Gammon. An email. She gave him a meticulous step-by-step guide to vengeance. She detailed how to destroy the masked man, Karlovsky. She even anticipated his suicide and gave chilling, specific commands for the fate of Tanakan and Smith.
So the sources suggest she was literally controlling him from the other side?
Manipulating his spiritual debt into an instrument of material revenge.
This level of meticulous planning proves the contract was never just about Damrong's death. It was about the perfect execution of her enemies afterward.
But the key to understanding why she chose such a specific, horrific execution method lies in the story Gammon finally reveals: the elephant game.
Okay.
This is the defining ultimate trauma of their childhood. Their father, a country gangster, a figure of terror and abuse in their lives, was tied up inside a large thatched bamboo ball by the police.
Oh my God.
And the police then used a young elephant, which had been taught the task, to kick and stamp the ball until the father's remains were scattered with splinters.
It was a brutal, medieval execution carried out with the seeming innocence of an animal.
And the reaction of the children is what transformed Damrong. Gammon revealed that Damrong, despite her youth, was the strong one. She insisted they both watch the execution.
And she filmed the entire event.
Filmed it, reacting with glee and insane cries of triumph.
So this moment, Watching her tormentor violently destroyed and documenting the act was her major success.
It fundamentally transformed her from a victim defined by her parents' circumstances into someone who realized her own power, the power to witness, document, and ultimately orchestrate destruction.
The elephant game was the psychological blueprint for her final revenge.
Yes. And she then took this blueprint and made it symbolic. We learned that Tom Smith and the monk Gammon were both wearing elephant hair bracelets.
Not a coincidence.
Not at all. It was a subtle symbolic device in Damrong's vengeance plan, binding her victims together both physically and magically to the fate of the elephant game trauma.
And the path to this final confrontation was marked by a terrible escalation.
No. A prostitute friend of Damrong who also worked at the Parthenon, she was drawn into the drama. Damrong had seduced Nok, ostensibly to protect her from Tanakan's extreme sadism. Nok was a vulnerability and she knew too much.
And she was murdered.
Her throat cut in a private room at the Parthenon Club. This was a clear message and a panicked escalation. It happened shortly after Damrong's death, almost certainly collateral damage resulting from Tanakan realizing the extent of Damrong's plot.
The investigating cop, Sonchai, was even present in the club just before her death.
Which suggests the murder was a setup designed to implicate or distract the police.
And the cover-up for Nok's murder was immediate and systemic.
Illustrating the sheer institutional power commanded by Tanakan and the other ex-members. The doorman Tanakan slave and gatekeeper was observed loading Nok's body bag into a van typically used for wholesale food deliveries at 4:23 a.m.
And the institutional cover-up went straight to the top.
Yeah.
Colonel Kirkit was assigned the case and ordered to tell the investigating officer that Nok's death was completely unconnected to Damrong's.
This swift, clean, institutional denial just confirms that the corporate environment and the high-end clientele were working in perfect coordination to silence the truth.
So, the final confrontation. It explodes far from the lights of Bangkok.
Deep in Surin province near the Cambodian border, at a failing elephant farm, complete with 10-foot mounting platforms for the animals.
Tanakan and Smith were abducted and imprisoned in newly built concrete huts.
And the final tragedy for the average Farang Dan Baker, Damrong's ex-husband, was that he was killed by the Karm guards during the abduction. He was just swept away in the violence.
And this setting, the failing elephant farm, brings us back full circle to the original trauma of the elephant game.
And this is where the spiritual warfare takes over entirely. Damrong's ghost enacted terrifying psychic vengeance using ancient ritual.
Okay, what does that mean?
It involved sorcery, a form of spiritual engineering described as sympathetic magic that should not be available to humanity for another 1,000 years.
And the mechanism was shocking.
Damrong's spirit traps Gammon's soul inside her own cadaver. Her body had been stitched up and dressed in a black ball gown for the ritual, transforming the corpse into a spiritual vessel.
So the goal was for Gammon, possessed by the powerful spirit of his sister, to supervise the ritual killing of Smith and Tanakan.
Replicating the elephant game, but this time with them inside the bamboo ball. The concept here is that the physical act of destruction would fulfill the spiritual Gadanyu debt and secure Damrong's vengeance across multiple lifetimes.
And the emotional climax, engineered by Damrong's spirit, targeted Smith's deepest psychological vulnerabilities.
When Damrong Gammon forces the lawyer Tom Smith to look into her eyes, he experiences a complete psychological meltdown, total autonomy lost.
He collapses into a limp rag, uncontrollably blubbering one word: mother.
So Smith, the yuppie jerk, was instantly reduced to an infantilized, traumatized state, suffering a spiritual violation that mirrored the physical violence inherent in the crimes he helped facilitate.
Damrong's vengeance sought to eradicate his entire identity.
But Tanakan, however, he reacted differently. The banker, the ruthless python, he immediately accepted the new, horrifying reality.
He didn't break down emotionally.
He capitulated rationally. Recognizing the terrifying supernatural power of Damrong's will, he immediately offered all his assets to her, millions of dollars, begging her to accept them and build a temple in her name.
He was trying to pay his karmic debt with material wealth.
Transforming his crime into a perverse act of piety.
And the ritual was only stopped by the quick thinking of the investigating officer.
Right. He understood the sympathetic magic was focused on the body and the robes, so he switched Gammon's saffron robes for Damrong's cadaver.
Which was conveniently lighter, having been gutted for preservation.
And then he took Gammon's Kalashnikov and shot the corpse directly in the head.
And that act shooting the body is what broke the powerful sorcery.
It freed Gammon's soul from the cadaver trap ending the spiritual dimension of the assault and allowing the investigation to revert, however briefly, to the material world.
So with the ritual halted and the two perpetrators in custody, the investigating cop needed airtight leverage against the corporate network.
And this was secured through the brilliant, albeit disturbing, use of technology and compromise. Yemi, the porn director who had been working under Colonel Vicorn, was tasked with filming the naked confessions of Smith and Tanakan.
And these weren't standard interrogations.
Not at all. Smith and Tanakan, broken and resigned, delivered their confessions as if reciting poetry, detailing the contract, their morbid passion, and their involvement in Damrong's death.
This video was the ultimate proof, unassailable because it was filmed by a professional, focusing on the psychological defeat of these men of power.
And this confession video became the ultimate leverage used to cut a deal with Colonel Vicorn.
Right. Vicorn, whose Yablai empire was now being supplanted by a potentially massive pornography empire, he wasn't interested in justice. He was interested in commercial protection.
So the video was traded for institutional silence, cementing the understanding that justice in this world is just another commercial negotiation.
The final, astonishing development is the profound effect the investigation had on the FBI agent, Kimberley.
She arrived via black helicopter, representing the peak of Western technological and legal authority, and she left fundamentally changed by the Thai concept of karma.
Her personal transformation centered on Lek, the transsexual cop. She confessed her desperate love for him.
And revealed a striking dream. She was a black American soldier dying in Vietnam for the love of a girl who looked exactly like Lek.
And this led to her profound acceptance that their connection stemmed from karmic chains stretching back thousands, even millions of years.
The Western investigative framework could not explain the intensity of her emotional shift, but the concept of inescapable ancient karmic debt offered a logical answer.
So she decided to sacrifice her entire Western career and stay in Thailand, determined to marry Lek after his gender reassignment surgery.
And the investigating cop even helped finance the operation, illustrating how deep the connection had become.
She accepted the reality that Lek would lose his job as a cop after the operation. She traded professional certainty for spiritual completion.
Which is a crucial final insight for you, the listener. For Kimberley, the investigation didn't just solve a crime. It proved that the universe operates on a moral economy far older and more binding than the U.S. legal system.
The karmic debt, once recognized, demanded immediate, lifelong payment. What a breathtaking journey. I mean, tracing a line from a single body in a morgue through the secret financial mechanisms of multinational corporations and culminating in a spiritual execution orchestrated by ancient trauma and debt.
Yeah. This case profoundly demonstrates how globalization doesn't erase ancient belief systems. Instead, it provides new financial and technological tools for their execution.
And that is the ultimate takeaway for you, the learner. Damrong was not merely a prostitute. She was a genius strategist who realized her full power when she transcended the need for living.
That's it. She achieved her revenge by flawlessly fusing disparate tools. Modern finance, like the $1 million contract, Western technology, video blackmail, isometric scanning, snuff film production, and Khmer sorcery, like the elephant game and sympathetic magic.
She leveraged the invisible men's lust and hypocrisy to fund her own destruction, ensuring her tormentors, Tanakan and Smith, paid the highest possible price, both materially and spiritually.
Bound forever by those elephant hair bracelets.
But even after the confessions, the arrests, the spiritual reckoning, and the resolution of the karmic debt between the characters, the deepest mystery remains.
It does. We know Damrong's brother, Gaman, sent the Kolofsky interrogation video to the police following his sister's instructions, but the investigating cop never did find out who sent him the original snuff DVD of Damrong's death.
That is the chilling final question this deep dive leaves us with. Who was the final unseen party, an orchestrator higher than the invisible men, higher than Damrong's ghost, who ensured that all of this chaos, all of this vengeance, all the details from the Florida body house videos to the Khmer sorcery finally came to light?
Was there a deeper form of justice, or simply a third, greater intelligence at play?
Something to keep turning over in your mind long after this deep dive is done.